Howdy folks, I'm Spencer Carlson with Carlson Trick Roping, and today I'm going to teach you how to do the vertical loop spin. Now the vertical loop is a fundamental loop in trick roping that is important to know in order to be able to do tricks like the Texas skip, and it's also the best way to start the big loop. Now what I'm going to be using for demonstrating this is a 22-foot piece of rope that has a brass Honda in the eye in one end, and the brass Honda is imported in a vertical loop to give it more weight to balance out the loop, because we're spinning it vertically. We have to spin it a lot faster. So you need a brass Honda in one end, and in the other end, what I have on this rope is a swivel handle, and this is a Carlson Trick Roping exclusive that we've created. And what it allows you to do is spin the rope a lot longer, and it takes the twist and keeps them from building up in the loop. So you just have to grab onto that, and then the swivel handle will take care of the rest. So if you don't have a swivel handle, don't worry about it. You can still do the vertical loop spin. I would just tie a knot in there and then allow that knot to kind of slip in your hand. And what you'll have to do in between tricks or attempts of spinning it, you'll have to work a little bit to get the twists out of there that build up in there, but don't worry about it. You can do it with or without the swivel. And so what I'm going to do in the first part of this video is I'm going to go through a couple of demonstrations. And so don't worry if I don't go into a lot of detail in this initial demonstration part. I'm just going to show you what the vertical loop spin is supposed to look like. And then what we'll do is after the demonstrations, we'll go back and I'll show you every step of the way of what you need to be able to do, and then we'll go through and do some troubleshooting if you're having difficulty with it. We'll have some sections in there on the typical things that can go wrong to help you correct those and get you doing a good vertical loop spin. So this is the demonstration phase. What I'm going to do is just real quickly show you what I'm doing here. Don't worry again about the lack of detail. This is just an overview. So I get the loop out. I'm going to make sure there's no twists in it. I get my hands in the correct position. I'm going to give the loop a kick. I have to catch the loop, and then I feed the tail out of the spoke over to my right hand. I stabilize the loop. I get it spinning in my right hand, and then I have to align myself. What I need to do is align with the loop, make sure that we're squared up and we're parallel to each other. And the loop is about a foot off the ground. I'm about a foot away from my body. And there you go. That's the vertical loop spin. Okay, so here's another demonstration of the vertical loop spin from the side, so you can see what it looks like. And what I do is I get my loop out, I get my hands in the correct position, I get my loop over to the side that it needs to be on. I shake it out a little bit. I give the loop a big kick to get it going, and then I catch it. I feed my left hand over to my right hand. I have to stabilize the loop, make sure that it's stable. After I get a stable loop, what I need to do is align myself with the loop and make sure that I'm perpendicular and squared up to it. And there again, the loop is about a foot away from my body, foot off of the ground, it's straight up and down. And this video is not about the Texas skip, but this is where I need to be before I do the Texas skip, is have that vertical spin nice and tight like that. And then it's just a matter of learning the timing. You can go through the loop, you catch it on the other side, and then you can keep it going. There you go, that's the vertical spin. Okay, so now what do we need to be able to do to get it to that point? Okay, so the first thing you need to do is get a rope that is balanced. It's got to have the Honda in it. I recommend the brass Honda. I believe it's 1.4 to 1.6 ounces. And you can get the ropes from us at trick-roping.com. Or if you have your own rope, make sure it's balanced and ready to go. About a 22 foot for the Western Ears kids. A youth, I'd say, is a 22, an adult is like a 24. I use a 24 typically. And okay, so the first thing you need to be able to do, the Texas skip, is first step one is get your loop out and get it ready, get your rope ready. Now there shouldn't be a lot of twists in your rope. There's going to build up a lot of twists in your rope from trying this, and So in between attempts, if your rope is all twisted up, it's going to fight you when you try and spin it out the next time. So it's kind of important to make sure that you don't have any twists in your rope. And to do that, you just let the Honda drop all the way to one end, and you're just going to run through your loop, or run through your rope, sorry, from one end to the other, and then work the twists out a couple times. And when you hang your loop, it shouldn't tie itself into a knot. Okay, so step one, get the twists out. Step two is you're going to build your loop. And okay, so I'm going to go over the fundamental, the three basic parts of the loop, or the trick rope, are the loop itself, which is the part that after it comes through the eye, that's your loop. The eye, or the Honda, which makes the loop, and then the part of the loop, or the rope from the Honda to the end, is called the spoke. So think of it like a bicycle wheel. You've got a hub in the center, which is your hand, and then this is a rim. The rim is the loop, and this bicycle wheel only has one spoke, and that's that one right there. Okay, so to be able to do the to be able to do the vertical spin, what you want to do is have about 4 feet. You want to have about 4 feet of spoke from the eye to the end. Okay, and what you're going to do is your primary hand. I'm right-handed, so my right hand is going to be my primary. If you're left-handed, just consider your left hand the primary. The primary hand is going to be about 2 feet from the end, palm up, and then your secondary hand is going to grab the end, palm down. Okay, that's a good starting position right there. And then you're going to have about 2 more feet out to the eye where you're going to hold that at. Okay, so palm down, secondary hand, palm up, primary hand. And then what I want to do, and then the other thing is, in your 2 hands that you're going to hold it with, it's all 4 fingers. So my palm up is going to go into all 4 fingers. My palm down is going to grab that. It's going to be solid in my palm. Okay, that's the part that I'm going to keep. Now I have to hold the loop to get it started, and what I do is I use 2 fingers off of each hand to do that. Okay, so I'm going to take 2 fingers and 2 fingers, and what I want is, there again is that 4 feet. So I want to slip the Honda about to where I got 4 feet, and I'm going to grab the spoke in 4 fingers, and I'm going to grab the loop in 2 fingers. So that's the part. The loop is what I'm going to drop. The spoke is what I'm going to keep. So at one point though, I got them in there. So there you go. That's the correct hand hold. Now here's what's not right. What you want is that Honda dangling about 1 foot off the ground. And if you have this, you've got too much distance between your hands, and you've got too short a spoke. So you want to get that spoke down to about where it's going to spin, right about there. Now what I need to do is get the loop all on one side of me. If you see this in front of me, if I tried to start it right now, it's going to come and hit me in the face. So what I do is you take your secondary hand over to your primary side's hip. Okay, so I cross it over, and so in this case my left hand is at my right hip, secondary hand to primary side hip, and my right hand is going to swing the rope back and forth a little bit. That'll get the loop all out to one side of me. So when I go to start it, it's all right there on that side. It doesn't have to try and pull itself across to that side of my body. Okay, so I left hand to right hip, or secondary hand to primary hip. I'm going to swing this out a little bit. Now what I need to do is give it a kick to get it started. So the kick part of the loop is basically, it has to expand the loop out to its full diameter so you can catch it. If you don't get a good kick in the loop and pop it out to its full diameter, then you can't catch the loop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show it to you from the side. The way that the kick works is it's a real fast motion. You lean forward a little bit, and the best way I can describe it is you bend your elbow and you're going to pull it over the top like you're being attacked from behind. And you're going to take the elbow and you're going to crack the person on the head who's coming up behind you. So there's an attacker behind me, and what I do is when I get ready, I'm going to really fast, I'm going to pull it over, and I'm going to hit him in the head. Okay, now watch what it does to the loop. It's going to start a big energy of this loop. It's going to follow it really fast. Okay, so That's the kick part. So you have to give it this kick. Now, that's only the first half of the kick. You bend forward, you get your hip into it, you bring your elbow over the top, your hand follows, you come down, you're cracking this person in the head, but that's only half the energy. What you need to do is, to complete that, is then you bring your palm down past your hip, and you pretend like you're kind of like throwing a rock or skipping a rock. So you got to do a complete 360-degree motion with a lot of energy to get that loop to pop to its full diameter before you can catch it. Okay, so here's the kick is, it's a bent elbow, crack, and then underneath. And then the underneath is a very important follow through. If you only get this part and then you kind of just stop, it's gonna just send your loop into the ground behind you there. So it's a very important full circle, high energy, over the top, under the bottom. So that's the kick part. Now when you do the kick correctly, your loop will pop, it'll pop out, and that's when you release it from your two fingers on each hand, and then you have to catch it and keep it going. Now the catch part of it is a reverse spiral. And what do I mean by that? So if you picture the hub in the middle where I'm keeping the spoke and the loop going, and if I went in reverse and spiraled out, I would come out, to the outside of the rim. So a reverse spiral is just the opposite. After I do my kick and follow through, what I have to do is I have to spiral up, reverse spiral to the center, and that's where I keep it going. Okay, so the reverse spiral comes after the follow through, and what I do is I let the loop go at the bottom, I bring this up and I spiral it, and then there's this motion that keeps the loop going. Now the motion that keeps the loop going is a swivel in your hand, but what's difficult about this part is gravity and is trying to pull that loop into the ground, and so you have to really accelerate it across the lower arc of that oval that it's making, if you will. So the best way that I can describe this is picture a big wheel on a wall, and what your job is to do is to keep that going. I mean, you start the wheel and it's big, and you've only got access to the bottom corner of it, and it's right there. So it's kind of like you're taking your hand and you're pushing the bottom of that wheel, and then once you let go, your hand is just kind of whipping back to set in position to push it again. And that's, if you look at a circle, the corner bottom arc is what you need to be able to really accelerate in that loop to get it to get the energy, and then it's basically the brass Honda momentum coasts over the top, so that all the energy is in that bottom corner of that arc, if you will. And so it's kind of you can picture skipping a rock. If you're skipping rocks, you're doing it over and over and over and over and over. So you got an endless supply of rocks. So every time you put your hand back, somebody puts a rock in there, and it's kind of this flick of the wrist type of motion. Okay, so let's go through it again really quick, and that's how you get it out and get it spinning. Okay, so what am I going to do? Steps again. Make sure that there's no twists in my loop. I get it out. I want about 4 feet of spoke to the Honda. All right, I'm going to grab it, palm up on my primary hand, palm down on the secondary. 2 fingers on each one's going to hold it. I should have 2 feet secondary hand to primary hand, and then 2 feet primary hand down to my to the Honda. Okay, now I'm holding the loop correctly. Now what I need to do is secondary hand to primary side hip to get it all on one side. I swing it back and forth a little bit. Now I'm going to turn sideways and demonstrate this so you can see the kick and the catch. Okay, the kick again is a bent elbow over the top with a follow through on the bottom to pop that loop to its full diameter. And once the loop gets its initial pop to the full diameter, I'm going to bring my hand up and reverse spiral to the middle. Now at that point, when you're reverse spiraling it to the middle, you still got about 2 feet of spoke over here that you got to deal with. So that's the initial kick and the catch. And then on the first half a dozen turns or so, what you do is you kind of let the loop grow, and you feed that left side. You just basically bring your left hand or your secondary hand closer to your primary hand until you just place that into your primary hand, and then your secondary hand is done at that point. You can stick it in your pocket or whatever you want to do with it. So your primary hand is all in control at that point, and then it's just keeping that momentum going, and then you go into the stage where you've got to get it aligned. So let's get it started first. I'll walk you through it one more time, and we'll actually do it. Okay, so I'm going to go through my loop, make sure there's no twists. Go through my rope, make sure there's no twists. I'm going to build my loop out 4 feet, 2 and 2, split it with the primary hand, make sure that I'm palm up and palm down, hang it on those other 2 fingers, secondary hand to primary side hip, swing it back and forth a few times to make sure that it's all on one side. Okay, so now I'm going to bend forward a little bit. What I'm going to do is, here comes the big kick. I'm going to lean forward, high energy over the back, throw it forward, catch it. Now I caught it. Now see, I'm feeding my left hand over, I put it in my right hand, and there we go. And there's that motion that keeps that going. So it's just a little bit of swivel, but it's really, you're carrying it through the bottom and coasting through the top. So I'll try and exaggerate it a little bit. You don't have to put that much in, but it's a swivel in the wrist and it's in the shoulder. So that's getting it going. Now, if I stop there, I would never be able to jump through it because I'm facing the loop. It's okay to face the loop to start it, but you can't face the loop to jump through it. You have to, because you got to be able to spin it on the other side. So if I was facing it and I'd jump through it, there's no way I can spin it, behind my back. I have to actually, once I get the loop started, always start your loop in the direction that you want it to go, because you can't. It's like a gyroscopic effect. You really can't change the plane of the loop very easily once it's going. So you have to determine where do you want to start it, and then you can face a little bit to get it started. That's fine, but the next stage is what you have to do is you have to align with the loop. So I'm going to show you that from the forward motion. This is the alignment. Okay, so this part is about aligning the loop, and what I've done is I've got another rope on the ground. You can find a crack in the concrete, or you can use tape, or you can use your heel and make a mark in the dirt. But basically it's just a reference point, and it's just a training aid to get you, I guess, give you coordinates or a bearing on where you want to spin the rope. So my line is pointing at my audience, basically. So if I extend it out in front of me, that's the center of my audience. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin the loop directly over that line. Now when I start, I might not be facing my audience. I might be at a 45. I can start it in any position, but I think it's easiest for someone new starting this to maybe turn towards it a little bit. That's fine, but if you ever want to jump through it, before you jump through it, what you have to do is you have to turn and align and get that exactly on your side and square, so when you jump through on the other side, you can catch it and it's still square. And so this is a very important. A lot of people learn bad habits of bad alignment, and it's hard to break that. So try and get your loop stable after you catch it, and then within a half a dozen turns or so, you need to start aligning up and getting ready, and getting used to spinning in that aligned position, which isn't as comfortable to spin it as facing it, but it's critical if you ever want to jump through it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, my goal is to spin the loop over the line, and then you'll see what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn and align after I get the loop stabilized. So I'm going to get it out, give it the kick and then a catch. I'm going to feed it over. Now my loop should be spinning directly above my line. And the first thing is, okay, I want to get the loop over the line, a foot away from the ground, and then I'll move my body up about a foot from it. Now you'll notice my elbow is in tight against my body, and I've got a V here. A lot of people, when they first learn this, they're afraid of the loop because it's got that spinning brass Honda, which only weighs 1.5 ounces. But when it's whizzing by your head, it can be intimidating. But I see a lot of people trying to do it at arm's length, and you know that you basically could do whatever you have to do to get it spinning and catch it, but then you got to be able to pull it in close to your body, tight, and get aligned. So there's alignment right there. Okay, so now we're going to go into some troubleshooting. What are some of the things that go wrong? Geez, everything goes wrong. And don't get discouraged. You know, this is not easy. Nobody was born with this skill. And, you know, 1, 2, 3 dozen tries, give or take a dozen or so, before you can get your vertical spin successfully out and caught for the first time and get some revolutions in it. But the main ingredient is persistence. Don't give up, and eventually you'll get it. And but I'm going to give you some pointers on common things I see go wrong and what to do about those. Okay, so the first most common thing, getting the loop out, getting your hands ready to go, is pretty easy, straightforward. One of the common things I see go wrong is the proportion of that 4 feet of spoke. First of all, you need about 4 feet from the ground to right about there. 4 to 5, yeah, maybe 5 feet on mine. I might use a little bit more, but at least 4 feet. And what I see is people don't have the 4 feet or the right length, or they have their hands in the wrong proportion. They'll have a lot more spoke in between their hands than they will on the end. And so what's going to happen here is, if I try and spin it here, I'm way too short on the Honda here, and I'm way too long here. And proportionately, your Honda needs to be longer than that to spin that much loop. So again, it's about half the distance. So take your 4 feet and get about half the distance. And ideally, the Honda's hanging about where it's going to spin. And so the first kick, you know, is that it needs to get the energy to pop the loop. So I guess that's the next thing that goes wrong, is the loop doesn't come out and pop to its full diameter so you can catch it. And if you don't get it to do that, you'll never catch it. And so a lot of people, they don't give it enough energy. They give it, you know, say if I give it half the energy, it's kind of like a wet noodle, and you can't catch anything that is, the loop has to be expanded to its full diameter, so you need a high energy kick on it to get that centrifugal force into the loop, so it basically goes out in all directions to its full diameter and then tightens up. And then once that happens, that comes around about the same time as your hand comes down, so you let go of it on the lower end, and so your loop is in a catchable position right there. So one of the things that happens is, if you're having trouble and you can't catch it, you might not be putting enough energy into it. And the other thing that I see is you might not have a good follow through. So first of all, check your energy. You should almost hear that thing whiz. Your Honda on that initial kick is going to whiz, and then the other thing that I see, if you have enough energy but you don't follow through, the loop is going to die, or it's going to try and fly away. So if you've only got half or the first half of it going up, you know, the loop's going to try and fly up and away behind you. And then if you've only got 3/4 of it, it's going to dive into the ground on the other side. So you have to get that high energy, bend forward, crack the person on the head with your elbow, and then throw it, you know, hit them on the elbow, and then picture grabbing them by the hair or something, and then throw them out in front. So has to have that full 360-degree high energy kick in that first one. So that's the other thing I see that goes wrong. And then after that, what I see go wrong, let's see, you have to do that reverse spiral up to the middle. And that's difficult, but it's kind of natural. Once you get the kick going, that spiral, what's going to happen a lot is your loop's going to hit the ground. Gravity is going to be your nemesis on this trick. So If your hand's not up high enough, the loop's going to be hitting the ground, and every time the loop hits the ground, it steals energy out of your loop, and it's hard to recover. Two hits on the ground and you'll probably be done. So if your loop is hitting the ground, do you see it? It pulled the energy out of it. If your loop is hitting the ground, you need to spin it up a little bit higher. The other thing that can go wrong in that is if you let go of the tail of that spoke before you feed it all the way over to your hand. So if I drop it and I'm still spinning, that tail can whip around and it's going to cause a train wreck in your loop there. So that's basically the feed on that, is you let it slip, let it slip, let it slip, and wait till it gets all the way, and then kind of do a handoff, and then, you know, thank you secondary hand, you're done. Tuck your thumb in your pocket, you know, and then and there you go. Okay, so here's another thing I see a lot of people get caught up in when they're trying to do this. Now the Honda, like I said, it weighs 1.5 ounces, and it can bean you if you get hit in the head. So I recommend, you know, put a baseball cap on and make sure that you have plenty of room too. Don't try this in the inside. Make sure you're outside. You got plenty of room. You don't want a low ceiling or furniture or kids or pets around. So make sure you got plenty of room. Nobody's around. No little ones who can run there and get beaned with this Honda. And then put a brass Honda. Put a baseball cap on if you're worried about getting hit with it. You really won't start getting hit with it until you try to jump through it. So, but it's not that bad. A ball cap usually will fend off most of those. But what I see people do wrong is they're trying to hold it way out away from them at arm's length, and you can't get the energy. The loop is just an extension of what's going on in the hub. So if you're way out here, you can't get the motion with your elbow at full extension or your arm at full extension. So I see a lot of people, they get set up right, they go to give it the kick, and then they're definitely afraid of it, and they're like trying to do it at arm's length. And it's like, okay, you know, what you need to do is bend your elbow in, bring it to your rib cage, and I could literally hold a notebook or something. If I tucked it underneath my arm right there, I could literally hold it right there. That's the only way you're going to get it in tight enough to be able to jump through it is my elbow has a V shape. I point my elbow back and I bring my upper arm in against my ribs, and there we go. The other thing that people don't do is they don't true up. So when you jump through it, you know, I'm at an angle, and that's you know, usually when you're jumping back and forth, you're not changing hands. So if I jump through it at an angle, I can't spin it on the other side. So you got to make sure you get a nice square true up rope. Okay, so another troubleshooting thing that I see happen a lot of times with people trying to learn this is the loop isn't straight up and down, and what happens is it starts tilting in. Most of the time it tilts in towards them. I hardly ever see it tilt away from them. And instead of being straight up and down, what they end up with is the top of the loop is over their head and the bottom is out further away from them. And that's a pretty common thing that you'll probably experience when you're doing this. And here's what it looks like. So when I spin it out, feed it, catch it, okay? So my loop should be straight up and down, perpendicular to the ground and parallel to me. And what I see happen a lot of times, and it could be because you're spinning it too far away, but the loop starts tilting in and it'll get over top of your head, and then the bottom will be way too far away. So have somebody spot you or watch you from where the camera angle is, or you can even set up a video camera and stand in front of it. Your loop should look just like it is right here. It should be the same distance from you on the top as it is on the bottom, straight up and down, perpendicular to the ground. And what causes that to tilt in, if your loop is doing this and tilting in, you're not going to be able to jump through it, and you got to fix that problem as quick as you can because it's a hard, bad habit to break. But what is causing that is the loop itself is an extension of what's going on in your hand, or the center of the hub, the wheels, is going to reflect what's going on at the hub of the wheel. And so if your hand, as you're going around, you're doing the motion to keep the loop going, if your hand is coming closer to you in the top half of that circle and further away from you in the bottom half of that circle, what it's going to cause the loop to do is start to drop over your head, and it'll be at an angle. So I'm going to exaggerate a little bit, but it's like you're pulling in as you come up, you're pushing out as you go down. So you're basically coming closer in the top half of the arc and further away, and then the loop is just going to drop over you. So to fix that, what you need to focus on is when you're coming across the bottom half of that circle is elbows bent in, like your upper arm should be almost against your rib cage, back slightly a little bit, and you want to be tight on the bottom. Okay, so you got to pull it in, and then as you come up, you don't really have to push it out, but just if you're, I think what happens a lot of times is your arm is out too far, and then as it comes up, it just naturally wants to pull at the elbow, and you don't want your elbow to be doing that work. It needs to be in your wrist. So your wrist should be doing the work, your elbow should be tight, and it's pull it in tight at the bottom and get that a foot away from your leg at the bottom of the circle, and then let the top kind of float through. If the top is still coming over after you're pulling in tight at the bottom, then make a little effort to push it out at the top until you get that straight up and down. And if your hand is the same distance from you on the top half as it is on the bottom half of the circle, then your loop will be straight up and down. But if it's closer to you on the top half or further away from you at the bottom, then you're going to have a loop that starts to tilt over, and that's how you actually do the big loop. Is you start to tilt it and then you feed it so you can get it a lot more fed out. But for the vertical spin, you want the same distance through that whole circle away from your body, and your loop should follow it. It should be straight up and down for you. All right, folks, so there you go. That's the vertical loop spin. And I think one of the most important ingredients and keys to your success in being able to do that is persistence. Don't give up, keep trying until you get it, and I promise you success will come. And don't be let down if you can't get it easily or right away, because nobody was born with this skill. And you might get lucky and it might be a natural at it. It might come to you easy after a couple tries, but more than likely what I've seen is, we're talking dozens, give or take a dozen. Might be a while before you can kick it, catch it, and then feed it and get to go around a couple times. But once you get that, start counting it and then go from there, and always try and do more revolutions, and pretty soon you'll be able to do them in 10s and 20s and 100s, and then focus on making it smooth. Make sure you get it aligned. You don't want to get bad habits where you're out of alignment or you have your loop tilted, because those are hard to break. So I hope this video has been helpful to you, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as have as much fun watching it as I had making it, and have fun practicing the vertical loop spin. And I will be doing follow-up videos to this, just do some tricks with it, teach you how to do tricks. And one of the most famous tricks with the vertical loop spin is the Texas skip, and that was made famous by a roper named Will Rogers back in the 1900s, and he used to do the Texas skip, hundreds of them a day, just to stay in shape, and he would do it on his stage. So I'm going to demonstrate that for you now, and I hope you have great success with the vertical loop spin and are doing the Texas skip soon someday. So take good care, and God bless, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Okay, here we go. Guess who needs to do 100 of them a day? That's better. All right. Vertical loop spin. Now the vertical spin is one of the 3 fundamental spins that you need to do in trick roping. But have fun doing the vertical loop spin, and hope to see you. God bless you. Take care. Off of the ground, it shouldn't be hitting the ground every time. That's part of the stabilization. Now I can make this look easy because I've done this thousands and thousands of times. Yours is going to hit the ground a lot. Don't get frustrated. But there you go. That's the vertical loop spin. I blow it. Arm's getting tired. Rope that we make, it's specifically for the vertical spin, and the vertical spin is a foundational, fundamental spin for doing the Texas skip. Now my hat's too big. What you should have is a loop that's spinning a foot off the ground and about a foot away from your body. Right there. That's where you need to be to jump through it. I know.
You're gonna have to retake it anyways. Might as well just answer it.
Watch out. Mom, she's here.
Oh, yay.
Are we still rolling?